welcome, Doug, to Nerfherders Assemble. This is a podcast that I'm on up here in Omaha. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about it, but I am going to have you on for another segment called My Friend Showed Me, and we're going to talk about Flash Gordon. But first of all, I just kind of wanted to chat with you. You are, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the creator of Grand Comic-Con, or are you just the person that presides over it and takes care of it? What's your official title with that?
That honor of saying that it was kind of my concept to come up with, and fortunately I have a great team of people, and they're very supportive, and yeah, we all kind of ran with it as a collaborative effort. Nice.
Well, this would have been the third year of Grand Comic-Con, right? So the first year was in 2018. So give me a little, just like a elevator's pitch history of Grand Comic-Con and how it came to be and how you came to be involved.
Well, essentially, I am on the board of directors with the Grand Theater in Grand Island, and we're a nonprofit association. We always do some fun nonprofit events. We have an annual car show. We were the host of the Prairie Lights Film Festival, which focused on Nebraska filmmakers. And so we're always looking for things to kind of expand and get out into the public. Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm a comic book fan from way back, sci-fi, so it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. So one day I was talking with one of the other board members, and I just threw out that idea. I'd been kind of thinking about it, didn't know how it would work, but I said, hey, what would you think about the Grand doing a Comic-Con? That's great. I don't know what it is. And so why don't you come up with that elevator pitch, and wanted me to present to the other board of directors. So went ahead and kind of came up with some ideas. Again, didn't know if it was even logistically possible, but I threw it out there. And everybody loved it. Of course, with the amount of sci-fi movies, superhero movies, things like that, that was the angle that they were looking at because it tied into the theater. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, everything goes back to promoting the theater itself. It's not something for me. It's for the theater. Because we always want to make sure that we're relative. Where is the theater going to be in 5 years, in 10 years? So that's why we come up with some of these events or stay active with the community to go back and promote to the theater. So anyway, they gave the green light, and so I sat down, again, had no idea if it was even going to be feasible, how we were going to do it. I didn't know how a Comic-Con ran. I'd been to quite a few of them and loved them. Mm-hmm. And again, I looked at it from a fan standpoint, not as a business standpoint. So we knew that it was going to be a nonprofit event. So, kind of the hook was we wanted to make sure we weren't charging admission. It was just going to be a fun event. I thought, it's going to be pretty small. Don't know if anybody's going to come out to Grand Island. Of course, we're in the center of the state. And so kind of went about, went to a couple of other cons that were coming up while I was coming up with the concept, and had gone to Planet Comic-Con. Love that. Go to it almost every year. Try it as much as I can. And, I really wanted to get some talent there, some creators. And again, had no idea. Can we possibly entice somebody to come? Didn't know if people charged me to have them come down. And I remember, just kind of talking to a few of the creators there, some of the bigger names, and they little leery, but it was like, hey, good luck. And I think it was Icon in the fall over in Des Moines that I went to, and I had spoken to Phil Hester. And we're in Grand Island. We have this little con that we're trying to put on, and it was still about 4 months away, 4 or 5 months. I think it was November when they traditionally have their event in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. And he said, I know right where Grand Island is. He says, we drive by there all the time. So I said, well, would you be interested? And I was really going into the angle of, would he know of anybody that was closer to Grand Island that would be interested in it? Now I figured he's in that creator circle. And he said, no. He said, I think I'd be interested in coming. Wow. Okay. Had no idea how to react. I was like, that's great. What do you charge? If you just, take care of my gas, put me up, and, things like that. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I remember I spoke to Phil Mesling as well, or I'm sorry, Jim Mesling. And, he was a little, don't really think I want to come to it. And I said, well, what I would really like is to have some creators give kind of a profile or something like that I can promote them through the internet. Hey, find some of these comic book professionals that you can find online. And he said, yeah, that'd be fantastic. And it turned out that, probably about a month later, he sent me a message and says, Doug, I think I'd like to come down too. Well, then the ball really started getting rolling. And then, I just, as word kind of got out, and we didn't advertise for it. We just kind of did some Facebook advertising, I guess, a little bit, mentioning it through the Grand's website. And then I had local creators, people coming out of the woodwork. And I was like, hey, this is really sounds like a fun event. We'd like to come. And the first year we didn't charge any table fees, anything like that, because, I don't know if anybody's even going to show up. Mm-hmm. So it just really seemed like a fun event, and so many people were like-minded. I mean, I couldn't have been happier. I mean, it was just people sending me messages, hey, we heard about this event going on, and I always like to play it up that it's a bigger thing than it is, Yeah, I think I can probably squeeze you in. Mm-hmm. And, the response was just fantastic. I mean, I couldn't have been happier with the amount of people that came in.
Well, that first year you had it in like this, what was the building you had? It was like an old German hall, right? Wasn't it?
It's called the Liederkranz Dance Hall. Mm-hmm. And it's one of, if not the oldest building in Grand Island. So it's an over 100-year-old dance hall. And beautiful, beautiful building. It is so rich with history. And but the thing is, and again, so we're looking for someplace close to the Grand, because I knew that we wanted to have, panels and some things going on at the Grand itself. So it's about 2 blocks away, and it was fairly inexpensive. So, hey, I don't have to put out a lot of money for it. Mm-hmm. It just really isn't set up for it's not set up for the kind of event that we were putting on. You had to go up some steps. It's not really ADA compliant. Beautiful building.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And, but you get that many people in there, and, the lighting probably wasn't the best, and the air conditioning and things like that. But, when people started showing up to set up tables, I don't think we could have gotten one more table in there. I mean, and the fantastic thing was, everybody on the creator side, yourself included, everybody ran their own stuff. And I didn't have to direct anything. I mean, it was just, I just stood back, and people were like, oh, we'll take a table over here. We'll set up over here. And it was amazing, the community of people that we had that were involved with that.
Well, I remember a friend of mine in Des Moines, Aaron Carlo, I think he tweeted out or Facebooked out, hey, I just signed up for Grand Comic-Con. And I'm like, Grand Comic-Con? Like, I live in Nebraska and I don't even know what this is. And I remember reaching out to you and like, it's too late. So I think there was like 2 weeks before the event, and got a table there. And, I try to go to as many events a year as I can, but I do have a regular 9-to-5 job. So I only have so much PTO. And I was like, man, can I afford to go there? And, I gotta, get, drive there, and I gotta get a hotel. It's not like something I can stay with a friend or something. And I was like, I don't care, I'm going to do it. And I remember just having a blast that weekend. I mean, not only did you start it off with Superman, the movie theater, but then the legendary Bob Hall was in attendance, and I had drinks with him on Friday night, and just hung out until it started raining and everybody had to go home. And then the con itself, because it was was it a 1-day con the first year?
1 day, yes, just on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I normally go to New York Comic Con and Kansas City Comic Con and C2E2 some years, and OCon, and that was still my best 1 day's worth of sales in the whole year, no matter what con, the size of con. And I was just blown away by the amount of people that came out for that, local and all around Nebraska, and then some from, Kansas and Missouri. I mean, people really came out for that to support a year one con. And I'd been to so many other smaller cons that never even got to half those numbers in their 5th year. So I was blown away by the by the amount of attendance.
The thing with that, being in central Nebraska, people are used to driving. I mean,
Right.
It's certainly no problem. Something were going on in Ogallala. I mean, I would drive out there 3.5 hours, or Lincoln or Omaha. But you couldn't have surprised me more. I mean, that morning when everybody was set up and we hadn't opened the doors yet, one of my helpers, and we only had a few volunteers. My family was there, my wife, daughter, son, my mom and dad. My mom and my daughter were running the entry table out front. And we had a few friends from the Grand were there as well. And one of them came in and said, well, we have like 40 or 50 people outside waiting in line. Cut it out. You're kidding me, right?
That's
and
great.
People came in and we had cosplayers and, we had so much fun. And I mean, of course, being there, I mean, how tightly packed we were. I mean, that really, again, it was a limited sized hall and we couldn't have fit any more in. But I mean, people were just walking shoulder to shoulder and it was so much fun. I mean, there was such a variety of vendors and cosplayers and creators. And I mean, it was so fantastic. I know that we had, Jim and Bob Hall and Phil, they were all up by the stage up in the front. So I could get up on the stage behind them. And we were just, taking pictures of the entire hall. And I mean, from the word go until we ended, I believe at 4:00, I mean, it never slowed down, and I didn't know if a 2-day would work at that time. We were happy with the 1 day and just the reviews. And, when you guys were coming up to me and just saying, Doug, this is so much fun. I mean, it was the perfect storm. I think Grand Island was really ready. There's nothing like that in central Nebraska. And, there's such a fan base here that I wasn't even aware of. That, I mean, it really surprised me. And I think everybody had a great time.
Well, and I think, I mean, yes, it is central Nebraska and people are willing to drive for that. But I think it also speaks to you and your team and the organization behind that. I mean, I've been to a lot of smaller cons, local cons that have been around for 5-10 years there's a local con that's been around for 10 years and they'll put the vendors in a back room and it'll open and we'll be sitting around for an hour or two wondering if the doors are even open. Like, are there people here? Or, and I mean, I love going out and supporting the smaller cons. I think it's vital to the industry. And it's a good way to meet people and whatnot, but there is something to be said for the organization that goes behind it and the people that are passionately working to set it up and promote it and advertise it. And I mean, you could have the best con, but if you don't tell anybody that it's there, no one's going to show up. And I was just amazed by the level of organization you guys had and how well you took care of us vendors that first year and how many people knew about it. That, I mean, it's the second that con was over, I was like, how do I sign up for year 2? And I know everybody else in my row was thinking the same thing. And then year 2 was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so thankful that everybody, that you guys, again, ran your businesses and, were so enthusiastic. When I was presenting this to the board and, every meeting that we would have, they would ask for updates before we had the con. And it was so funny because I didn't realize how passionately I was speaking about it. And again, I think that the ultimate underlying theme on the whole thing is everybody that's involved with the Grand and involved with Grand Con, we're all fans. I mean, we don't run it as a business. I mean, it's never, of course, there are numbers that get involved, but when we look at it, it's what can we do to make this fun? What can we do? Because I was just so excited to have, creators such as yourself come in. It's like, I never really had a chance to talk one-on-one, with actual authors or actual, comic book creators or the cosplayers. And, there were so many people that I wasn't even aware of the community being in, the central United States. I mean, this only goes on in big cities, right? I mean, you had to go to Chicago or New York, before you found this creative community. It's like, oh, no. People are from, small towns or, from Omaha or Des Moines or places like that. And I mean, I couldn't have been more thrilled just to be able to sit down and talk with you guys, one-on-one, find out what you were thinking. So.
Well, you were great and the volunteers were great. There's an older couple that I always forget their names, but I see them there. I saw them there year two, and they're like my grandparents' age, but I think they were working the entryway doors in the first con, and they were like, we don't know what this is all about, but we just wanted to help out. And I love them. They're like really nice. And so the volunteers were great. But let's talk about year two, because year two, already you were upgrading your venue. You were changing things up. Was that an easy sell for your board after the success of the first year, or how did that all go down?
Well, again, we knew that we had to go bigger, and we had to get a different venue that would be more accommodating. And again, love the Liederkranz, love everybody that's involved with that. I mean, that is such an important building in Grand Island. It just really wasn't going to allow us the room to grow that we wanted and to do some of the things that we wanted to do. So I kind of brought that up to the board, and we started out early. And, again, wherever we were going to be, it would be away from the Grand Theater. So that would make it a little bit tough. I mean, it was kind of working against what the underlying purpose of Grand Con was. And I had people tell me, hey, you need to go out to the state fairgrounds. And, we don't charge admission. So we don't really, everything that we put forth is going to be money out of pocket with the Grand. And being a nonprofit, you don't really want to spend a lot of money and not get anything back in return.
Right.
And what actually happened was a few months after Grand Con 1, one of the other board members, she approached me and she said, I want you to meet me at this one certain place. I won't tell you yet, but I'll tell you right before it happens. And I just want you to look at it and tell me what you think. And so she contacted me one day, and we had a tour of the Aurora Cooperative Pavilion. And I had probably been in there once or twice, at the state fair. And so it was all emptied out. And so we're walking around, and yeah, this is perfect. I mean, this space was, probably about 4 times as large. It's all one level. It was easy to get in, just a wide open space, beautiful, beautiful area. But I thought, there's no way we can afford this. And then I found out, this is affordable. And I mean, we literally were spending about the same amount of money. And,
that's great.
But for the 2 days, it got a little more expensive. But it couldn't have lined up any better. And I mean, her bringing that to my attention, the wheels started turning. Well, now I can get more people in. Now we can do some fun events and do some more things. And Fauner Park, they're fantastic. They were helping us promote as well. And the parking was better. Everything, it couldn't have been better. So much, much happier.
Well, we loved it from a vendor's standpoint. I mean, we could have full size tables. We weren't standing on each other's toes in there to organize, and it was a great building. And you did up the vendor price a little bit. I think it was like an extra $10 or $20 for year two, but it was still hundreds of dollars cheaper than a lot of the surrounding cons around here, even the smaller ones. And it was very affordable, and there was just so much praise. I mean, I had no problem convincing other people to go to Grand Comic-Con, because either they were there the first year or they'd heard so much about the success. I mean, I don't think any vendor walked away from that first year not had a good time or not having good sales, just because it was a great atmosphere. So I don't know if you had any type of a hard time of filling up that place, but I know, at least from the people I was there with, it was an easy decision to let's go back for year two.
Nope, not at all. I mean, I had people that had not been to the first one, and they were contacting me, and they'd heard great things, and which it made me feel great. I mean, and again, if I can promote the Grand number one, that's the Grand Theater. That's the best thing. And the next thing was hearing back from creators and vendors, and such as yourself, saying this was great. I mean, we had big vendors, Krypton Comics. I mean, yeah. Dean had a great day. It was like, wow, and I know he goes all over the country.
He does. I see him all over the place. Yeah.
And it's like, oh no. And at first I didn't know that we were going to get him for Con 1, but he came in and, we helped him unload his truck and everything. And he was like, wow, you guys are great helping out. And, but just having so many new vendors come in, because of what they heard the first year and the experience that you all had. It really was a fantastic thing to get everybody in.
Well, and I had one question for you. So like I said, I've been to a lot of smaller cons, and I think one of the problems with a lot of smaller cons is that they don't really know where to get the funding from, and they end up basically charging a lot per table for the vendors. So they use that money from the vendors to kind of from the vendor tables to kind of, fund this place or fund the event. And it seemed, did you guys get sponsors from around town, or how did you keep the funding low enough to where you didn't have to spike up the vendor tables to make this thing happen?
Well, we have a unique situation where the Grand Theater itself, as a nonprofit, in our mission statement, we definitely want to do events that are for the public. Nonprofit events, things like that. So we do have funding available through the theater, and we thought about getting grants, and we may look at that in the future, or sponsors. I really don't want to have a lot of sponsors, because sometimes that kind of you get a different identity to the event.
Sure.
But again, we just kind of kept the cost down. People ask, why don't we have celebrities, TV stars, movie stars, things like that. Well, when you look at having to bring somebody in for, say $5,000, $10,000, and they're charging for autographs and things like that, I think that kind of goes against, and nothing wrong with that by any means, but it kind of goes against what our con is about. For me, I like the creator aspect. I like the writers, the creators, the artists, and the vendors. I shop all the vendors when they're there. And, just having fun. We're giving away movie posters with, silly trivia questions and things like that. So we don't take ourselves very seriously. But there again, if I had to bring in some high dollar people or high dollar, celebrities, things like that, we'd certainly have to charge admission. And I think the aspect of what we had where we aren't charging admission, it gets people off the fence. Well, yeah, I'd like to go to that, but I've got a family of 4. I don't want to spend $50, $100 just in admission to get in and not know what this is about. Well, with us, you have nothing to lose. Come in, and I think we saw people just walking out with merchandise. Merchandise that they'd purchased, and it was like that made us feel great. It's like, well, hey, we're not making any money. We don't need to make the money for it. If you come to the movie theater, that's great. That's what we're all about. But, you as a creator, hopefully we're allowing people to come in and save that money on the admission so that they can spend it with the individuals, the creators or the vendors.
Well, that's always music to a vendor's ears for sure. I know a lot of people that won't try to get a table at some, traveling cons, especially if it's very celebrity heavy, because that, a majority of those people have already spent $100, $200 before they even step in. And that's on admission, and that's on, an autograph line or a picture line. And so, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what a lot of those really get their bread and butter from, is those autograph lines and those celebrity visits. But it's really nice to see a con where that's very vendor centric and that is taking care of their people. And again, you said it, it's if you're coming with a family, you want this to be a family event, but if a family has to pay $60, $70 just to get in the door, then it's kind of a downer for them. And then does a parent really want to take their kid around when they know they've already spent $10 before they even walked in the place? So
they have a different expectation too. I'd better get my $60 worth, coming into place. And, the thing with the mix of people that we have, as far as the creators and the vendors, there's such a wide array. And everybody, people should be able to find something there. But the other aspect too, with keeping that cost down and keeping those table costs down, some of the new creators that we have that come in, now you're certainly a seasoned pro. You've been working the con circuit quite a bit, and but some people, they just do it as a hobby, and it's like, well, I've never really thought about setting up at a con like that. We had so many, first time con vendors, and it's like, well, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, but I don't know if anybody else will be passionate about it. And, when you see the success that they have, because they really don't have anything to lose at that point, $25 for a vendor table, it's like, well, you should be able to make $25 back. And if you don't, it's a very low cost to, dip your toe in the water and, see what people think, so we got a lot of positive feedback from, a lot of first-time con goers or, con vendors. So, yeah, that was
there's something to be said about the camaraderie between the vendors as well when they're not, they're not already crazy in debt before they even set up their table. I know we're all out there fighting for attention and fighting to get our products out there, but when you're paying for $1,000 for a table at New York Comic-Con, you want to be nice to everybody around you, but at the same time, you are fighting for people's attention, because if they go to the table across from you and buy something, they're probably not going to buy anything in the rest of that aisle, and it seems like you're just fighting, even though you don't want to fight. But at cons like Grand Comic-Con, yeah, it's low cost to you to set up. Everybody's having a great time. The people next to me were brand new. This was the first con they've ever done. And, I was chatting them up all weekend, and the people across from me were chatting them up. And it was just nice to be able to talk to people, not only talk to your customers, because you have time, and you're not like, okay, let's get to the next sale type thing, but also talk to the people in the aisle with you and just, enjoy it as a vendor as much as the attendees are enjoying it. And
oh, yeah.
That speaks volumes to me.
Pressure off. Absolutely. I can only imagine, that you're not, watching the clock, oh, I only have this much time left and I really need to hit this number, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. And again, I think we've just been very fortunate with the way everything's worked out. And the crowds are there and they want to spend and they love what you guys put forth. And, it really is, I know it sounds kind of hokey, but I always say it's not my con. It's actually yours as well. You guys supply so much creativity and the variety of products that are out there and the projects that you guys share, it really lends to the entire atmosphere. And I really think that it's a big team effort.
Yeah.
I'm very, very happy with the way it's worked out.
Well, we are going to switch over to Flash Gordon here in a second, but before we do, I just wanted to talk about year 3. What went down with, as with across the nation and across the world, how you guys dealt with the COVID-19 crisis, and if you have any news or anything of what you're looking forward to in the future, beyond this current pandemic and whatnot. So what's going on there?
Well, of course, we were set up for the last weekend of March, and that was probably right at the beginning of where COVID-19 was kind of ramping up around the country. And we were looking at Planet Comic-Con, which was scheduled the weekend before us. That was really our barometer to see, if they're going to have it, we're going to have it. And, they kind of pulled the plug and set their sights later in the year. So we made that decision. I met with the other board members and I said, this is really too big for me alone to, we were kind of on the fence. Are we early enough that we try and do it? And then as a group, we all agreed, we just didn't want to be responsible, and this was before, everybody was canceling. So we kind of got ahead of it, made that decision, and, we closed the theater down as well. We're just trying to do what we can, do our part, and not contribute to, huge gatherings, things like that. So it was tough. We had, I spoke with several of the creators and the vendors, and, they kept constantly asking me, they were calling every day, are you going to have it? You're going to have it. And I had a few that were saying, well, even if you have it, are you going to have crowds there? So we thought about that as well. And we thought, just in the best interest of everybody, let's just go ahead and postpone it. It wasn't like we had a lot of money put out there. We'd done some marketing materials and little things like that, but, just a small amount, and I realized that there are other events that, they're probably, facing a much larger financial loss by postponing, but fortunately in our case, again, as a fun event, we didn't really lose out on anything. I was personally bummed and the rest of the board was. We were ready to go. I mean, we had a lot of fun activities planned. And again, just getting people in the theater that Friday night for opening ceremonies. I mean, that's just you get that feeling, and you're up there on stage and you see the place just with a ton of people in ready to watch a movie and just have, and, so that was kind of a letdown that we put it off.
Well, then you had those awesome posters, right? You had the Back to the Future posters, and then you already had the controversy of having to switch up the movie. Because it was going to be Back to the Future. Was it just the first one that you were going to watch, Back to the Future 1? And then
the first one. And again, at the theater, we for our opening ceremonies, we always want to have kind of a family friendly movie. Nothing. Right. That people can bring the kids to and things like that. And kind of at the last minute, I mean, it was really probably about 3 weeks before the con, we found out that Back to the Future was not available to watch. So it was like, oh, great. I've tailored all my marketing material towards that. And the team that was helping me as well. And we thought, well, what can we show? And I had some suggestions come up. And I think we did settle on The Last Starfighter. That movie was available, because you come up with a list of 10 movies, but we have to submit that to the various movie studios and see if it's available to watch. Right. And, so, I mean, it's easy to say, well, yeah, just run down to Walmart and get a DVD and throw it in. Well, there are licensing restrictions. And, even if it's a free movie, I mean, we're still bound by that. So we had to find something that we could technically play. And so, we decided on The Last Starfighter, which is just a fantastic movie. I've loved it since I was a kid.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have The Last Starfighters group, as, just so many of them are part of the con as well. But that was not the influencing decision. I've had people say, well, yeah, they told you to play that. No.
They strong-armed that in there. No, they didn't do that.
No. That was my decision, And, you look out there for just, and again, bringing people into the theater, you just want them to have a good time. You don't want to have a real heavy movie or something that's, been out recently. And, but when you look at some of these movies up on, you may have seen it on TV, but unless you were around back then, you haven't seen it up on the big screen. And it's such a different experience, so we wanted something that was really going to be made for the big screen. But yeah, what we're looking at in the future, we don't know what the future holds. Certainly Grand Con is not going away. And last fall, I mean, you were a part of it, but we had our Grand Mini Con back in, what was it, September? I think it was September. And we just had a great time. We had it at the theater, and we probably had, 10 vendors and creators, 10 to 15. And again, the theater is not set up for that kind of an event, but I think we got you guys all in, and we had a great turnout for just a one-day con as well. It was just a free little thing just to keep us in people's minds. So we're thinking, maybe everything kind of eases up a little bit. We'll still have one in the fall. And then, again, we'll plan on next March, it'll technically be Grand Con 3, might be 3.5 or something like that. We'll have to do something clever. But I think we'll still plan on that, definitely.
Well, and I'll cut this from the interview if you don't want me to say this, but I think another thing that speaks to how well you strive to take care of your vendors is the fact that you did what a lot of events haven't been doing, and even bigger events have been under scrutiny for not doing, in that you sent the checks back out to the vendors for their tables. And especially when, it's Grand Comic-Con, and like we've said before, it's very affordable to vendors. And I think most of us are ready to come back in 2021, and we'll probably just be happy to, let you, keep the money and apply it to the next year. But, you were looking out for everybody, and especially in a time where, some people's pockets might be a little tighter than normal. It was a very generous thing that you guys did to send those checks out, and certainly something that I wasn't expecting. And the more I thought about it, the more I just thought how different that was compared to a lot of these other events where they're just kind of like, well, we're going to hold on to it and we'll see what happens. Probably because they can't even afford to let that money go with all the cancellations going on.
Well, again, we're pretty low cost on what we're doing. Fortunately, the venue at the Aurora Cooperative Pavilion, we notified them right away. And so we have a deposit down on the building, but they said, hey, let's just go ahead. We'll carry that over. So we're out nothing there. And again, we spent a little bit of money on the marketing material and things like that. But yeah, I mean, in these times, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have my day job. You know, I can still go to work. I'm considered an essential employee. But I know a lot of people are at home, and, you know, at first, you know, it's probably like, hey, great, I get a week off or something like that. And some employers were able to take care of their employees, you know, for the short term. But as this has gone on, and, you know, I don't want to get up on the soapbox and preach, you know, but I mean, it's such a divided issue where, you know, some people are like, don't open the country up. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. And other people are like, well, we have to go to work and things like that. And, you know, again, I don't draw the line in the sand, but, you know, we thought, well, I mean, we certainly need to return the money to these people. You know, who knows what's going to happen in a year? There might be a small creator that, you know, hey, next year, you know what, it just isn't for me. And so I don't want to keep their money on that. I mean, we've been so fortunate with everybody that's here, and we want to take care of people, you know, anything that we can do to help out. And, you know, everybody that, you know, had a spot at this year, it's like, I don't want to hold on to your money to guarantee you a space. You know, if you're with us, you're with us. And, you know, I've got the list. So yeah, just let me know and you're back in. So don't worry about that.
Well, that really spoke volumes to me and a lot of other creators that I talked about. So that was really cool to see you guys do that. But before we wrap this part of the conversation up, you know, I work for a nonprofit as well, and we had to close down our campus and suspend sessions since mid-March, and we've been fighting, you know, every day for funding to kind of, you know, make sure that we are able to open when it's time to reopen. So is there anything that people can do? Is there you know, any way to help out the Grand Theater or Grand Comic-Con, you know, while you guys are closed down? Are you taking donations or anything like that? Or how can people help the Grand Theater in these times?
Well, I tell you, we've actually been very, very fortunate. So we're going to be okay. I mean, there are certainly more deserving places out there that, you know, just whatever you can do as a community. If there's somebody that you can help, go ahead and help them. We'll be okay. Grand Con, again, we try and keep our costs down, and, you know, there's nothing really that we need at this point. Just keep your enthusiasm up. Promise us that you'll keep us in mind. Follow us on Facebook, and, you know, we have a couple of our team members, and they're posting constantly, and it might be just some silly things, but, you know, it keeps the Grand Con in people's minds, you know, so that they can anticipate, you know, what's coming up. And, you know, we put all of our news on there, what's going on with the con. So yeah, just, you know, we appreciate everybody keeping us in their thoughts and things like that, but, you know, we'll be back. Absolutely.